For many people, technology has become the number one resource of getting more knowledge, skills, and many other things nowadays. That's why we are proud to provide our new mega project, Vigor Digital Learning Hub, VDLH. VDLH is a digital service that helps organizations to continue their learning journeys for their employees by providing learning solutions that needed for mastering different knowledge and skills for greater performance through various updated and important topics. We are providing digital learning services like webinars, virtual simulations, online assessments, live sessions, virtual conferences and exhibitions, virtual reality, business consultation, and coaching sessions. VDLH providing tailored training topics that will help HR organizations to boost up their learning performance and engagement. We are providing personal skills, business topics, relationship skills. VDLH is providing their learning in different digital tools that will support the learning solutions with the most efficient ways to deliver a full learning experience. The number one rule of achieving your goal is taking action, and with VDLH, we will make sure that every single action you take will be calculated, effective, and always supported by us. Start now. Contact us for more details. VDLH, Endless Learning.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Eid Mubarak. We are really excited for today, and as we promised you, we are providing the webinar number 7 from a series of webinars that we are providing as a part of our responsibilities at Vigor Enterprise to help everyone to overcome this tough time. We are also proud to introduce our new mega project, VDLH, Vigor Digital Learning Hub, our new digital service that will help individuals and organizations to continue their learning journeys anytime, anywhere in the world. And now, we would like to welcome our guest for our webinar for today, Mr. Jeff Topp. Jeff is a creativity and customer experience expert, professional speaker, and best-selling author who works with companies and organizations who want to increase their bottom line by changing their customer experience and retaining great talent. He is the author of the hugely popular book, Coloring Outside the Lines. Please welcome Mr. Jeff Topp.
Thank you so much, Abdul. And salam alaikum to those of you in the Middle East. That's the extent of my Arabic. I'm sorry. I'm so excited to be here. I have to tell you that I realized suddenly that it's 9 o'clock in the evening in Kuwait. And if it was 9 o'clock in the evening here in the States, I'd already be asleep. So thank you for spending the time and being here today. I'm excited to talk to you about my favorite topic, which is really customer experience, not necessarily customer service. We'll talk a little more about that. But I think that we've gone through some crazy times right now. And depending on what industry or profession you find yourself, you're either back to whatever sense of normalcy we have, or you're trying to get back to normal. But I think we can't forget that the most important part of our business is our customer, our patient, our student, our member. So as we get into this, I want you to think a little less about, the money we're making or the tasks we're doing. I like to look at the entire presentation today as a balance between task and relationship. And so before I go any further, we have a poll question just to see what you're thinking. So the question is, are you more task or relationship oriented? Perfect. So we've got a lot of relationship. We have a few who are honest with me and said they're task. Excellent, a lot of task. But we've got a good balance. All right. So today, though, we're going to look more at the relationship side than the task. As a matter of fact, for those of you who are task-oriented, very left brain, I'll use a graph just because I know that you like graphs. And on the bottom of the graph, we'll have relationship. And on the side, we have task. So if you were in the bottom left quadrant, what would be there? That would be low task, low relationship. So what is your style when it comes to customer experience? Low task, low relationship? How about in the top left, you'd be high task, but low relationship. So get it done. I really don't care about the people. We just have to get the job done and worry about the bottom line. Or are you in the bottom right quadrant? What would that be? That'd be low task and high relationship. That would be, let's just have a lot of fun doing it. Who cares if we're successful? And there are you where we're trying to get today, and that is the top right, which is high task and high relationship. Okay, maybe this doesn't make that much sense to you, so I'm going to put it in other terms. I want to just, I won't sing, I promise. You don't want to hear my voice, but which song would represent each of these quadrants? Well, in the bottom left, we have low task, low relationship. The song that came to mind was Hakuna Matata. I don't know if you know that song. It's from Lion King, and it just means no worries because low task, low relationship. How about the top left? What would a song be there? High task, but low relationship. Does Dean Martin come to mind, or Frank Sinatra? Sorry, I did it my way, right? High task, but low relationship. Are you in the bottom right? What would the song there be? Low task and high relationship. That would be You've Got a Friend in Me, right? Because all I care about is relationships. But where we want to be is high task and high relationship in the top right. And what would that be? The song would be Let's Get It Started. So let's get it started. All right, today we're going to look at 5 steps for great customer experience in turbulent times. And these 5 steps have just developed recently for me because obviously we've gone through some crazy times in the last few months. But the bottom line is, have you kept in touch with your customer, and is it high relationship? So the first one is reconsider the 4 C's of what I call relationship marketing. And what are the 4 C's? Number 1 is be clear. You know, are you clear? When the going gets tough, the best leaders in customer experience get crystal clear in their communications. We have to retain that clarity to keep our organizations effective. One of the most important duties, I guess, of a leader in customer experience is the ability to look at complete data and kind of break it into small parts. So are we clear? Marcus Buckingham says in his book, Things You Need to Know About Great Managing, Great Leading, and Sustained Individual Success. He says that, you know what, you don't have to be charming, you don't have to be brilliant, but you must be clear in your communication. All right, let's go on. The second C is be consistent. You know, when I say be consistent, what comes to mind is 32 years ago when my wife first got pregnant with our first child, the friend of my father's came to me with some advice. He said, you know, your children will never know, they'll never understand what you will say, do, or how you'll act in any given situation. But I said that wrong, I'm sorry. You will never know how your children will act, what they'll say, or what they'll do in any given situation. But they must always know how you'll act, what you'll say, and what you'll do in any given situation. And I think that's what consistency is about right now, especially when we talk about, keeping that customer relationship going. You know, consistency, I have to say, doesn't always present itself. As a matter of fact, I had the opportunity to speak before all this happened in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I was doing a big session with about 700 people. And then later on in the day, I was going to do a small workshop. And they said to me, my host said, in between, just go to any workshop that you like. And so I found this one, improve your efficiency with the latest technology. And I thought, why wouldn't I want to do that? I'm an entrepreneur. I'd like to know what's going on with technology. I opened the door, and inside, there were 8 flip charts. Now let me go back. Improve your efficiency with the latest technology, 8 flip charts. The message is not consistent, okay? That's probably not high technology. All I'm saying is now more than ever, we have to be clear in clear, and we have to be consistent with our communication to our customer. I also like to look for photos of things that aren't very consistent. Here's one. A sign for invisible fence, and the placement isn't that great. So that's consistency. All right, the third C is be confident. All I mean there is, remember, we have to create confidence in our product, our brand, and our service right now. And the only way we can do that is by building on the relationships we already have, by building new relationships, if possible. I really like to say that this turbulent times have created an opportunity for business to get new customers, because I think it's important right now that if we're confident, clear, consistent in our message, that customers will be drawn to us when it's time to do business again. And the last C is be concise. We just have to think about what we're saying, how we're saying it, and when we're saying it. Just being concise with our message to our customer. All right, so there are the 4 C's: clear, consistent, confident, and concise in our decision-making and relationships. Now, we're talking about relationship marketing. What do I mean by that? I'll give you a simple example. My dentist, her name is Dr. Denise. And when this first hit and we had to do our quarantining here in the States, I had an appointment to get my teeth cleaned. And of course, I couldn't make it. I canceled. And the next day, I opened my door to find a package on my doorstep with this note: "Sorry you had to miss your dental cleaning appointment in these crazy times. We sure miss you, Jeff. Looking forward to reconnecting when things get back to normal." That's what I'm talking about, relationship. It had nothing to do with making money. It had nothing to do with cleaning my teeth. It was just building on the relationship. What have you done, or what are you doing to build on that relationship? That's what I want to talk mostly about today. All right, the second step is basically accepting that there's always, always, always more than one right answer to every single challenge your customer brings you. And I like to say customer internal and external. We all have internal customers and we all have external customers. But historically, every invention, every creative idea, every innovative company has started because somebody dared to look for the second right answer. As a matter of fact, I think it all comes down to perspective. Now, if you've spent any time with me before, you know that I have a saying that I share with all my audiences worldwide. I shared it when I was in Kuwait in December. It's this: if you see the world through your customer's eyes, you'll see the way your customer buys. Now, I think it's key. And throughout my presentations, you'll hear me say it's from their perspective, not ours. When was the last time you looked at your business, at your facility, from their perspective, not ours? I just did a webinar with 800 restaurant owners. And here in the States, the restaurant business is just closed down. And they're very worried about what they're doing. But on a positive side, I said to them, now's a great opportunity. Go to your restaurant and pretend you're a customer. And from the minute you park to the minute you're done eating dinner, what is the perspective? What do they see? Their perspective, not yours. And I got a wonderful email from one of the participants who said, I tried it. He said, and I didn't realize that something as silly as parking in the parking lot was so difficult. He said, it's something that I didn't realize from their perspective, not ours. So it's just seeing the world through your customer's eyes. Well, in my book, Coloring Outside the Lines, I developed this thing and I call it giving yourself an ask. It's just an alternative solution kick. It means when you know you've got the right answer, are you willing to say there's always more than one right answer? If you think about it, this is how creative and innovative companies started, because somebody dared to look for that second right answer. But I have trained myself for years to do this, and much to my family's chagrin. And last year, my wife and I were out for dinner. We're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I live. And we're walking along after dinner. We came across this sign in front of a sandwich shop, which I think is the second right answer. I'll let you read it. See, now, I'm a marketing guy. So to me, this is either great marketing or they're idiots. I don't know which one, but I never walked in to find out. I just thought it was a cute sign, and it was definitely the second right answer. All right, let's move on. So in the book, Coloring Outside the Lines, I developed this thing that I call the Harvey Principle. Now, I don't know if any of you as children saw the movie Harvey. It was a wonderful black and white movie with Jimmy Stewart was the lead character. And in the movie, Jimmy Stewart's character is the only one who can see this 6-foot white rabbit, this invisible rabbit that he's called Harvey. Now, I watched this as a kid, took it at face value, very entertaining. But maybe about 10 years ago, I rented it to watch with my daughters. And for some reason, I watched it from a whole different perspective. Even if you haven't seen the movie, at the beginning of the movie, they want to commit Jimmy Stewart's character to a mental institution. He's obviously crazy. He's the only one who can see this 6-foot white rabbit that he's named Harvey. But watching from a different perspective by the end of the movie, I started to question whether or not he was the crazy one. Maybe, just maybe, it was everyone who couldn't see Harvey who was crazy. And I started to think, how does that affect our professional lives? So I developed this thing in the book. It's called the Harvey Principle. It's a whole chapter in the book. But the bottom line is this. It's learning to see invisible opportunities where everyone else sees only visible limitations. Let me say that again. Learning to see invisible opportunities where everyone else says it can't be done. Where everyone else says, we tried that 4 years ago before you got here, it doesn't work. Where everyone else says, you can't do that in this profession. That's where the opportunities lie. And so the onus of customer experience doesn't just rely on you and the customer. It relies on all of your people seeing invisible opportunities as well, where everyone else sees only visible limitations. Are you empowering your people to see those opportunities and bring them into your profession, into your organization, massage them a little bit and be creative with them? So here's an opportunity, a logo that I guarantee you see all the time on a truck going by, on a van going by. What's hidden in the FedEx logo? I bet a lot of you know. For those of you that don't, it's a giant arrow, giant white arrow. Now, in the chat box, I want you to just tell me if you'd never seen that before. Tell me if you had never seen that before. Anybody? All right. Does that mean that every single person on this call has seen it? Hey, we got somebody. Thanks, Buzz. Huh? One person. There we go. I knew it. Here's the point. For those of you saying you've never seen it, we have just officially driven you crazy. You don't understand. You will never again look at the FedEx logo and not see that arrow. I can prove it to you. I was going through Minneapolis, Minnesota airport last year, and I had some time to kill between my planes, and I'm sitting there doing some work, and I look out the window, and there's a FedEx plane taking off down the runway. And I'm looking at it saying to myself, don't see it, don't see it, don't see it, don't see it. Ah! You can't help but see it, right? Why? Because our left brain, that analytical, detailed part of our brain, is trained to read it and move on, read it and move on. Kind of how most of you are trained in business today. You know, next problem, move on. Next order, move on. Next customer, move on. When in fact, now that I've made your right brain, the creative side, aware of what we'll call the opportunity, your right brain will kick into it every single time. My question is this: what's right in front of you? Maybe you've been going into that same office for 10 or 15 years. You've been going into the same store for 10 or 15 years, and you've never really allowed your right brain to kick in to look for the opportunities. Even more important, how do we get our team's right brain, the creative side, to kick in to look for those opportunities? I had the privilege of speaking in India about 4 years ago, and I showed this slide. And afterwards, a young lady came up and said, yes, but Mr. Tobe, what about the measuring spoon in the other E? That's right. If I have to see it, you have to see it every single time. All right, let's go on. So number 3 in our 5 steps for great customer experience in turbulent times, number 3 is be a relationship manager, not a task manager. And this is key right now. We have to manage relationships, internal and external customers. Yeah, it comes down to communication. I know that's a gross picture, but it really points out what I'm trying to say. We have to listen to our environment for whispers of opportunity. I like to say we need to shadow the stereotype of the experience people expect to have with us. Well, shattering the stereotype is about communicating in a way in which they want to be communicated to. Again, if we look at perspective of our customer, we figure out how they want to be communicated to, not how do we normally communicate. So in being creative, I think that we listen with our eyes and our ears. Every study that I've read says that to be effective communicators, really there are only 3 things: the words we use, our tone of voice, and our body language. So if that makes up 100% of our effectiveness, I want to ask you a question. If words, tone of voice, and body language make up 100% of our effectiveness, how important in percentage are the words we use? And hopefully we can launch that poll again that we had before. There it is. So is it, in other words, as a percentage, are the words we use 63% of our effectiveness, 50% of our effectiveness, 33%, or 10%? All right, I'm going to end the poll. And we see that our results are basically pretty even. Most of you agree that it's not 33%, but many of you, number one is 63%. Well, I won't keep you in suspense. As a matter of fact, here's how it looks. Every study I've read says this, that 10% are the words we use. So congratulations for those of you who said that. 30% is our tone of voice, and 60% is our body language. So my question is this, what message are you giving customers that's not coming out of your mouths? You know, you're going to hate this because I'm going to sing. And you do not want to hear my voice, but I'm going to sing very quickly, and I'll promise I'll get it over with quickly. But I want to sing a song that I think is sung worldwide. I'm pretty sure anyway. It's the #1 lullaby when we have a baby. It's old, but I'll sing it anyway. Rock-a-bye baby in the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby, cradle and all. Now that's in English, obviously. But if you think about the words in English, who made these up? Rock-a-bye baby, we're going to put you in a tree. Why we're putting you up there is a mystery to me. The wind's going to blow like a hurricane, a tornado, a typhoon. And the branch you're on is going to break. You're going to fall and probably die. Good night. What's with that? See, it has really nothing to do with our words that we're using. It has almost 100% as our tone of voice and our body language. What message are we giving people that's not coming out of our mouths? Sorry, I had to put you through that torture. Let's go on. The second thing is to understand when we're talking about this, that to understand that ambiguity is reality. What do I mean? I can only use English as my reference, but the English language, for those of you that English is the second language, many of you, it's got to be a tough language. We have so many meanings for every given word in the English language, depending on context, right? Ambiguous, so it's an ambiguous language. If you're not familiar with the word, it just means that it has so many meanings, the language itself. As a matter of fact, I don't know if this is real. We call it an urban myth. Meaning, I found it on the internet and it proves my point. I hope it's real. Supposedly, this was written by an 88-year-old consumer. Last year, I replaced several windows in my house, and they were the expensive double pane, energy efficient kind. But this week, I got a call from the contractor complaining that his work has been completed for a whole year, and I had yet to pay for them. Boy, oh boy, did we go round. Just because I'm old doesn't mean that I'm automatically stupid. So I proceeded to tell him just what his fast-talking sales guy told me last year. He said that in 1 year, the windows would pay for themselves. There was silence on the other end of the line, so I just hung up and I haven't heard back. Guess I must have won that silly argument. Yeah, in English, ambiguity is reality. So if this is true, what are the two most dangerous communication tools we have at our disposal today? Any guesses? Yeah. What is it? That's right. It's email and texting. Think about it. The minute you send a text, the minute you sit down and you write an email, what's happened? You've lost 60% of your body language. You've lost 30% of your tone of voice. You are now down to 10% of the words you use. And you better make sure that the words you use are the words you want me to understand as a recipient. You know, I think I'm the only person here in Pennsylvania to have been fired last year from a volunteer position. I sent my board of directors an email. I knew exactly what I meant. It's just not how they took it. So ambiguity is reality. Remember, we're talking about relationship here, and communication is key. All right, number 4. Number 4 is a little odd, and this one I've been told, you know, that I make people feel uncomfortable, and that's okay. I'm all about coloring outside the lines. It means getting outside of your comfort zone. So during turbulent times, I think we need to become a storyteller. What do I mean? We should be collecting stories from our customers, from our internal and external customers. I'll give you an example. I asked the CEO of an insurance company with whom I'm doing some consulting right now in customer experience to send an email to his 700 plus employees, asking them if they would participate in a voluntary project to keep a record of their daily lives during these unprecedented times. And it was amazing. I just suggested that they keep a record in any form that they like. I don't care if it was written, if it was video, if it was done as a poem, a journal, a film, it didn't matter. See, each individual perspective is valuable and adds to the whole. So this was only internal, right? Well, the results have brought laughter. They've brought tears and wonder. Employees jumped in on the ideas on a weekly basis. They submitted poems and they submitted videos and haikus, so much so that the CEO established a separate website just so that they could see what each other were doing when they were working remotely. And I think that is key. So I told this story. Remember, I told you about the group of restaurateurs. I told this story last week and got another email from one of the attendees who said, I tried it with my customers. I've opened up for them to send me via our website videos or anything else that's going on in their lives. It's been hugely successful. So I just wanted to get you thinking about, we have to be storytellers. I think that's what relationship marketing is all about. And in these turbulent times, it's about caring. It's about truly caring about our customers. And any way that we can show them we care, I think will endear them to us, will make them loyal, and keep them coming back. So be a storyteller. The last step for our great customer experience in turbulent times is this. It's engaging your people at a different level. See, I truly believe that the more engaged people are internally, the better the experience externally. So if that's true, I wanted to share with you my latest book, Anticipate, Knowing What Customers Need Before They Do. We came up with a 10-point customer framework. It's just 10 steps to designing and implementing the ideal customer experience. Now, before I go any further, I mentioned very early on in this webinar that I think there's a difference between customer service and customer experience. See, customer service, when I was in Kuwait especially, I noticed that so many organizations are great at customer service. Your organization is probably great at customer service. It comes from the heart. It's not going anywhere. You know, what can I do for you? How can I help you? That's customer service. But customer experience is very different. Customer experience is the ability to step back and ask ourselves, what's my customer's experience from the minute they make contact with us till the minute they're done? That involves so many more people than just you or just one person. So now we're talking about the end-to-end customer experience. And if that's true, part of that customer experience is getting people more engaged, either internal or external. How do we do it? I think that we engage our customer in so many different ways, but the key here is this bottom one. It's turning touch points into anticipate moments. Now, in the book, we call them anticipate moments. And we'll get to touch point in a minute, but I know these are very American brands that I'm showing. And I apologize for everybody else, but these are in the States are just brands who are known to engage their customer. Some of them at a very superficial level. There's an airline here in the States. It's regional, only in the States, called Southwest Airlines. Maybe if you've been here, you've heard of them. Southwest does an amazing job of engaging their customer. I flew from Chicago, Illinois to Los Angeles, California last year on Southwest, and they had the entire plane singing a song. Now, I know this sounds silly, but at a very superficial level, what are they doing? They're engaging their customer, giving them an experience, an end-to-end experience that they're not soon to forget. Harley-Davidson is a manufacturer of motorcycles, of course. And Harley-Davidson, I don't ride a motorcycle, but my friends who do tell me they've done an amazing job of improving the customer end-to-end experience. Zappos, great example here in the States. Again, just an online retailer, the experience is incredible. So it's not about customer service. It's about customer experience. And we have to think of every touch point in our organization. So with the word touch points in mind, with the words touch point in mind, I'd like to launch another poll if I can. The next poll is this. How would you define the term touch point? Let's see what we've got. Maybe we don't have the next poll. All right. Oh, we're using the chat box. I apologize, technology, right? All right. Would you mind, how would you define the term touch point? I don't want an example. I'm looking for a definition. We'll give it a couple seconds here. How would you define the term touch point? Thank you, Maria. Senses. Exceeding expectations, absolutely. Anybody else want to take a stab at it? The experience that our customers go through, yes, in a way, personal touch. Any point of contact of your customer to your brand. I love that. Anything to do with our customer, where the interaction happens between the brand and the customer. Point of contact to customer. I love this. Reaching their needs. Point where there is contact with the customer. So what I'm hearing over and over again is that contact. You're absolutely right. But I have a very specific definition I'm going to share with you. And it's important only because I also want to share with you an exercise. An exercise that you can do with your team or your entire organization, depending on the size, that I can guarantee you will get them 100% engaged. See, I told you before, the more engaged people are internally, the better the experience externally. And engagement does not come from management down. It comes from grassroots up. And so how do we engage our people at a grassroots level? It's very simple, an exercise. First of all, here's the definition. If you're interested in doing this exercise, I'm going to share with you in a minute, you need that definition. Take a picture of it if you like. But I define it as any opportunity we have to influence the customer experience. Any opportunity we have to influence the customer experience. Your people need to have that definition before we can do the exercise. And all you need for this exercise is a flip chart, an easel with paper and markers. And give this definition to your team and say to them, okay, with that definition, any opportunity we have to influence the customer experience, what are our touch points in any given day? And then stop and listen. At first, it's like pulling teeth. You'll hear things a lot to do with marketing, our website, the business card that we send, an invoice that we send to a customer, a telephone call we make, in-person meeting. And so at first, by the way, with the flip chart, you have to write down each one of their answers, every one of them. And then what about things like, if I come to your office and I can't find a parking spot, touch point. I go to the men's bathroom and it's dirty, touch point. Your on hold message, touch point. We have hundreds of touch points at any given day. And like I said, at first it's like pulling teeth, but eventually you'll end up with 25 to 35 different touch points. Then tell your people, we're going to take a break. And at the break, I want you to come up. There are markers up here. And I want you to take a marker and put a check mark beside the top 5 priority touch points for our team or our organization. And then bite your tongue. Take the break and let's see what happens. So let me show you a case history about how this works. All right. I think I can do that better. I had the opportunity to work with a company here in the US in the state of Missouri. And the company was called Shadow Milk Company. Now, Shadow Milk Company is not very large, 65 employees, and they have 2 customers. They pick up milk from a farmer, customer number 1. They process the milk, and then they sell the milk to small retailers, so customer number 2. So we did this exercise, all 65 people, and no surprise when we came back from the break, the number 1 priority touch point they identified were their drivers. Pickup and delivery. Think about it. Who has more frontline contact with the customer than their drivers? So I took the 5 drivers, all men, I took them aside at lunch and I said, congratulations on being identified as the number 1 touch point in the organization. You should have seen their faces. I don't think they've ever been recognized before. I said to them, what's one thing we could do to tweak, to make better this one little touch point called pickup and delivery? Well, without hesitation, one of the drivers giggled and he said, well, when I tell people what I do or where I work at Shadow Milk Company, I get a bit of a laugh. So I was wondering if we could use that somewhere in the company. Guess what? On the back of every Shadow Milk Company truck, and I hope this translates, it says, in case of accident, please have cookies ready. Lots and lots and lots of cookies. Now, when I was in Kuwait, I found out that this is a very American, North American thing. And that is, when we have milk as children, we like them with cookies that we can dip. That's where it comes from. So in case of accident, please have cookies ready. Now, what happens? You pull up behind the truck and maybe you smile and you associate that with Shadow Milk Company. But that's not the power of it. What do you think the driver, not of this truck I'm showing, but the driver who I asked, about touch points, what do you think he's saying to everybody he knows? That's my idea. And look, it's on the back of every truck. Do you think he's satisfied at work, or do you think he's engaged? He's engaged. See, just by identifying our touch points, and 5 is not a magical number. You can pick any number you want, the top 5, the top 6, and then having people own it. And there's a key. Each touch point has to be owned by someone or a department, but somebody has to own it. In other words, who takes responsibility for it once you identify it? So they owned the touch point, pickup and delivery, the drivers, and they tweaked it one little bit. If everybody did that, imagine what it'd do to the entire customer experience. It would completely change it. So touch points are a key starting point. We're talking about, how do we change things from our customer's perspective in these times of turbulence? All right. Well, there you have it. I kind of flew through it, but there are 5 C's. Reconsider the 4 C's of relationship marketing. Accept that there's always more than one right answer. Be a relationship manager, not a task manager. Be a storyteller, and engage your people at a whole new level. I think we're going to open it up for questions right now, and hopefully you've got lots of questions that I can answer. I'm glad to answer anything at all. I'd like to give credit to Denelson, who said we do pull teeth already, and he or she must be a dentist. While we're waiting, I'd like to mention, I noticed a lot of people mention exceeding expectations of customers, and this is a favorite of mine, because that's what customer experience is about. It's not just meeting their needs. It's about, I like to say, it's about surprise. If we can add surprise in every interaction, then what we do is we customize the experience for the specific customer. Someone said they didn't quite understand the story of touch points. The bottom line is that touch point is any opportunity we have to influence the customer experience. Ask your people, your team, your organization, what touch points we have and how can we make them better. Go ahead, Abdul. I'll leave it to you.
So we have a question from Mice. He asking how do we make sure our customer experience is the best through e-commerce and websites?
That's a great question. So, people have said to me, oh, we're online. We really don't worry about experience. No. I think it's more crucial when you can't see your customer. So I think that the first thing is, have you secret shopped your own site? What do I mean by that? Not you personally, but I think that you get somebody on the outside to try and shop your website and try and come up with any problems that they can and see what perspective the customer, the user has from their perspective, not yours. The second thing I think is, how do you make sure that experience is an end-to-end wonderful experience? So it can be a great experience online. And I'm going to use an example because I don't know exactly what you do, but then you're shipping me something and everything goes wrong in shipping. Well, not our problem. That was DHL or that was FedEx. We have to own the end-to-end experience. Now, you may not have control over it, but we can absolutely empathize with the customer. So it is my end-to-end experience. It's not just about the experience I have just as I'm putting in my order, but as I'm navigating, I want to know. If I were in that business, I'd want to know their experience from their perspective, not mine.
That's great, Joseph. So the next question from Anwar, he asking, what is the difference between delight customer and satisfied one? Which one is more into customer experience?
Oh, definitely. I think you said delight. Is that the word you used?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A delighted customer. I say it's a huge leap. On one side, we have customer service, and that's where I used to be, customer satisfaction. As a matter of fact, I hate to admit it, but in my old business many years ago, in the advertising business, we did customer exit surveys, customer satisfaction exit surveys. Customer satisfaction is not good enough anymore. I don't want a satisfied customer. When you make the leap to customer experience thinking about delighting the customer, surprising them, giving them wow experiences, you end up with a loyal external customer and an engaged internal customer. There's a huge difference. So so satisfaction is not good enough. I don't want my customers satisfied. I want to make the leap to customer experience thinking.
So the next question from Umran, he asking, what is the difference between brand experience and customer experience?
What's the difference between? I am not a brand expert, so don't even know if I can speak to it. But in my mind, brand experience is very different. Well, let's explain. First of all, let's talk about the similarities. The similarities are the feeling I get, right? So the feeling I get when I see a brand isn't much different than the feeling I get as a customer when I'm done an interaction. I think that, but I think brand is more about being is more about interaction, whereas customer experience, I think, is more emotional. So what is it? And it's the bottom line is how do I say it? Branding is what yes, I have feelings about what it is, but I think customer experience is what story am I going to tell my family tonight around the dinner table about the experience I had with you as an organization? And it's much more emotional, I think. I'd be glad to know your comments. Like I say, I'm not a brand expert, so I apologize.
Yes. So the next question from Maria. She's asking, how can we start a very good engagement with our guests since we lost in touch with them, for them not to feel we abandoned them in times of lockdown?
Yeah, this is a tough question, Maria, and I hope that you've been working on it and not just tackling it now. We've had 3 months to stay in touch, just like my dentist. It's about truly caring. I don't know if you have a list of your customers. If when you say your guests, I'm going to assume that you might be in hospitality of some kind, and I'm hoping that you've stayed in contact with them. Truly stayed in contact, telling them you care, not trying to seem like you're selling something or getting more business. But I think that there are a lot of professions, and hospitality is one of them, where people are going to be scared to come back. And so we constantly have to ask ourselves, what is it that they need from us to feel comfortable in the situation? Now, here in the States, this is personal opinion, and I'm not getting into any politics, but to me, everything's just opening too quickly. We should be a few weeks behind you in the Middle East, even in Europe. And we're not. There's a rush to get everything open, and I think that we're going to be sorry about it. But I think people are afraid right now, and so the question becomes: how can my team? How can we make people feel comfortable in coming back and using our services? I think if you haven't kept in touch with them, that's okay. But I think as they start to come back. Again, what are you going to do that's different from everybody else to make people feel comfortable?
That's great. Jeff, so next question. Jaja asking, how do we make sure that each touch point lead to good customer experience?
By getting our people engaged. It's the only way we can do it. Customer experience doesn't happen without a great engaged team internally. So maybe the question should be, how do I get my people more engaged at what we do? I think that by examining every touch point, we start looking at things we never thought of before. And the bottom line is, and I know I rushed over it, but it's about accountability as well. Very quickly, I had the opportunity to work with an organization here in the US, and they identified one of those top 5 touch points that I was talking about in the exercise. And basically, when I asked, well, who owns that touch point? Everybody looked at each other. Nobody took responsibility. Well, somebody has to own it. You've identified it as a touch point. Who's accountable for it? So eventually maintenance took accountability for this specific touch point, which had to do with parking. And they did something, I don't know exactly, but they did something to improve it just a little bit. And it started to change the customer experience. The point is, with people identifying and owning each touch point, then making it a little better, just that one little touch point, in case I gave you pickup and delivery, the cumulative effect is a completely different customer experience.
Thank you, Jeff. We have question from Miles. Making them delighted and wowing the customers, doesn't that push up my margin for the next shopping experience? She meaning it will make them expect the same treatment again next time, making them satisfied in the next experience. And I have to keep pushing over that border and making it hard for recovery strategy, for example, in retail e-commerce business.
Mace, this is the fun part. To me, this is the creativity. See, here's the thing. One size does not fit all anymore. You know, if you can imagine two boxes, and one is in the middle, it says value, and the other, it says cost. The cost, we'll do it this way, the cost in the customer's mind is always bigger than the value. And so I think in being creative today, and yes, we have to push ourselves to do it every single time. We have to figure out how to increase the value for the customer so it becomes a bigger issue than the cost issue. And cost doesn't have to be price. It could be the perceived cost of using my website, the perceived cost of doing whatever it is you're asking me to do. And so, and I'm not talking about, you know, pie in the sky, kind of sit down at a potter's wheel and make a beautiful bowl creativity. I'm talking about how do we creatively increase that value for our customer over and over again. And what does that take? It means understanding our customer better than anybody else. And so here's where I find, especially in e-commerce, that I don't think that organizations spend enough time understanding their customer better than their competition. What does that mean? It depends on what business you're in. But we need to ask ourselves, and yes, you know, you are pushing yourself that the next shopping experience is going to be even better, more of a delight. If you know Zappos, I showed that example. Zappos this is one of their core values, is to delight, wow customers every single time. Now, I've shopped with Zappos for a few years for shoes. And just recently, I ordered a pair of shoes. I received them. They were the wrong color. Now, I wasn't upset, but I called Zappos right away and I said, I'm sorry, but you sent the right shoes, but they were brown instead of black. And the gentleman at the other end said, I am so sorry. You know what? We're going to send you the black ones today. And I noticed you've been a customer for a few years. So here's what I'd like to do. Keep the brown ones. And I said, well, I didn't want to spend that kind of money. He said, oh, no, we're not going to charge you. Just keep the brown ones. Our mistake, we appreciate your loyalty, and we want you to keep coming back to us. Well, that was a wow experience, and I've been working with them for years. So there are ways to do this. I don't care what business you're in. Sorry, I get passionate about that.
So we have a question from Christine. How can we still show the customer's experience since we are offline? Do you think customers still will feel the same toward us?
Well, you know what? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I don't think they will. I don't care what business you're in. If you've been kind of offline, so to speak, consumers have very short memories. And I say that, although, you know, I think of my favorite restaurant and I have, you know, warm feelings and I can't wait for them to come back. But again, I have to tell you that they've been in touch with me. So maybe that's a key. I think that you're going to have to work hard. It's going to be much harder for us to get our customers back than ever before. But you know what? That's the challenge. And to me, it's the opportunity as well. I think that we're just going to have to be creative. There's no choice. We have to be creative in the choices we make and how we communicate with our customer and how we communicate that we're still here. We love you. You love us. Please come back to us.
Yeah. So we have a question from Anwar. How can we measure customer experience effective? Any recommended tools?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when I do a lot of consulting one-to-one, either virtually now or it used to be in person. There are three what I call KPIs. I don't know if you're familiar with key performance indicators, but because what bothered me was with customer experience, people used to say, yeah, I feel good about the customer, about the organization. I like working with them. That's not measurable. But there are three very measurable KPIs. Number one is employee engagement. So if you have not done, I don't know the size of the organization, it really doesn't matter, but you need a great employee engagement survey because you need a benchmark. And if you're going to focus on customer experience, you're going to see that people become more engaged, the better the experience for the customer. They become more engaged internally. So we need a benchmark. That would be an employee engagement survey. The second thing is have you done a survey of your customers? And do we know any kind of benchmark on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being absolutely not and 10 being absolutely, would you recommend this to your friends, to your associates? I'm sure you've seen these things, but a very simple survey with only maybe 3 or 4 questions. Again, something measurable to see if we can raise the bar. And the third one is retention. So again, in these times, this is hard to do, but in normal times, I always say, let's look at retention. How many customers did you keep last year, and how many do you keep this year? But I do it internally as well. How many employees did you keep, and then how many employees did you keep this year? So these are just 3 very, it's a lot more involved, but 3 very measurable KPIs: employee engagement, customer survey of some kind, and retention.
Thank you, Jeff. Question from Riola. Every customer has a different needs and expectation, meaning that their customer experience is going to be different, isn't it? How can identify the customer experience is all about PSS?
Yeah, and if I knew what PSS was, I would I would respond. But you're right that every customer has different needs. One of the things I say to large organizations when I'm working with them is you can't identify every customer's needs, but we certainly can put them into, let's say, quadrants. What are the 4 different kinds of customers we have? If you've done any work in behavioral styles, Myers-Briggs personality, or DISC, or real colors, or strength finders, you can apply that to your customers as well. So the first thing I do is I try to identify 4 quadrants of kinds of customers and what their needs are, because then if I can at least change the experience for those 4 quadrants, I've affected most of my customers. I apologize, Aurelia. If you could let me know what PSS is, probably something I should know, but I'm not sure. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Fabulous. So we have a question. When dealing with customers in person, do you have any tips on how we could make them feel more comfortable and accommodated as soon as they step foot in our clinic?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and so I'm glad you said clinic. So we're talking about probably about healthcare of some kind. Exactly. And one of the things, just to give you an idea, they here in the U.S. they opened dog groomers. I don't know why they say they're essential, but apparently our dogs need a haircut, even though I can't get a haircut. But anyway, and one of the things that made me feel comfortable, and I talked about this with the owner, was that the minute I got there, people were cleaning. And I know this sounds silly, but they were spraying the surface of the counter. They were social distancing. They had masks in our case. They were cleaning the front door handle. So people who don't normally do that weren't responsible for maintenance or cleaning. Everybody was pitching in. And I think that's what impressed me most, and that's when I felt comfortable, because I walked in with my dog, and everything was being cleaned just from the last guest. And so I think that it's going to take a huge effort. But here's the key. I think it's a huge effort on everybody on our staff. People just can't say anymore, that's not my job. I think everybody's going to have to pitch in no matter what. Answer the phones, clean take the spray and clean the handle of the door. Whatever it takes right now to feel that make that customer feel comfortable.
Yeah, the next question from Yusuf. He's saying, we are all different individuals, and to have a better customer experience, wouldn't our method of engaging with each guest should be different, or rather customized in a way that shows we know them well? Just a thought.
Yeah, Yusuf, it depends again what business you're in. But the more you can customize it, this is what I say, the more you can customize my experience, the better the experience that I'm going to have. So I think we've talked about that quite extensively. But the bottom line is, yes, if you can use their name, that's customized. Something as simple as when I did last fly on an airplane, if you remember getting on an airplane, but when I did last fly on an airplane, the captain had written a note on a napkin and placed it at my seat. Just said, thank you for being a loyal customer. That's all it said. To me, that just was, that little touch of customization made all the difference in the world. And so when you're, engaging your guest or your prospect, it has to be customized every single time.
Thank you, Jeff. Samira asking, is there a way to identify different types of customers?
There is. Yeah, sure. Samira, if you want to take my class, no, I'm kidding. Look into any one of the behavioral styles assessments that you normally do. We think of them internal for our internal customer, but I apply it to our external customer. And in my book, I'll put a plug in, Coloring Outside the Lines. I actually have one chapter that's kind of fun and funny, but it's very much dedicated to that as well.
The last question we have today from Carolina. She's saying, you mentioned that in order to keep customers engaged, we need to be internally engaged at first. Can you give us an example?
Yeah, Carolina, I would hope I've done that. I just want to say, an example of getting our people engaged. Well, that was the exercise I was trying to explain. That was probably the easiest way. But I think also we have to think about who we're hiring. And I know that, again, I can only use the US, but a lot of people have been furloughed. They've been laid off. And before we start bringing people back, I'm telling my clients, I want you to take a look, not just at that they can do the job, but are they a fit? In other words, what is your culture? That's the first place to start. How do we identify the culture of the organization? What are our values? And are they a real fit? You know what? I can teach a skill, but I can't teach the attitude. I can't teach them to be a fit with our values, with our culture. And so I think that's another thing you can do is take a look at your hiring practices, who you're hiring and how you're hiring people.
Thank you, Jeff. That was an informative talk. We appreciate your time and effort. Here at Vigor Enterprise, as a partner with Mr. Jeff Talk, we would like to thank him and thank everyone for joining us today. Please make sure to fill in the survey that will be sent to you on your registered email so you can get a free ebook, Coloring Outside the Lines. Thank you again from Vigor Enterprise and VDLH. Eid Mubarak. Stay safe and see you soon.